Joined now by Colonel Dan Davis, a retired U.S. Army and a senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities. Colonel, good morning. How are you?
Morning. Good to be here.
Well, let's dive into this. The Pentagon drawing up plans for a quick Afghan withdrawal. Concerns by some that the president may issue the order today. Not literally today, but at a moment's notice.
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? I mean, he could. He certainly has done that recently with, situation in Syria. But, honestly, I think that this is something that the Pentagon should have done long ago. This should be something ongoing. Just like we have contingency plans for all kinds of different military operations, they should definitely have contingency plans for a rapid withdrawal, because this has been on the president's comments even from the election time, but certainly all the way through, his tenure so far, is that this is something that he has an aspiration to want to get rid of. So they ought to be prepared whenever he gives an order to do that.
Now, we've already pulled out somewhere around 2,000 troops in the past year. So, there's been a drawdown to some extent. But right now, we still have, about 12,000 still in Afghanistan.
Right.
So that's a big decrease from the overall number that was there previously. What about that footprint? How would you assess the footprint as it stands now, effectiveness and otherwise?
Well, I mean, that entirely depends upon what the mission is and what your objectives are. I mean, that's almost like saying how long is a piece of string? Well, it depends on what you want the string to do. And right now, based on what Secretary of Defense Esper just said, I guess within the last 24 hours, that it's to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a base of terrorism and to train the Afghan army to continue to do that. But the problem with that is that implies that the troops there are preventing terrorism from operating in Afghanistan. And as we know for a fact from numerous congressional testimonies from the commanding generals over the last several years, is that there are almost a score, dozens of terrorist organizations that are operating there right now. So our troop presence does not prevent that right now. It didn't during the height of the surge in 2010, 2011 when I was there and had observed it firsthand. And it's not going to change when we leave either. That means that, we have to consider that our presence there doesn't help or hinder that. It's going to exist one way or the other. And then you have to ask, well, then why do we want to spend our money, and why do we want to keep losing American soldiers for a mission that doesn't even work?
Well, let's talk geography and logistics here. And Dan, as an Army guy, where logistics matters. So let's look at this. If we're to keep a presence in Afghanistan, we would have to be somewhere, whether we're in the west, in the north. There's a lot of questions about being anywhere near Kabul or Bagram. If we need to get back into Afghanistan, something happens, terrorism operations. In the past, we've had a narrow corridor because of Pakistan, because of the borders, and we've had a narrow corridor to get in and out. But our time has been relatively fast if we need to deploy in there to do something with our special forces. And by the way, we do that after 9/11 effectively. So in that case, looking at this, isn't this the time to consider getting out, drawing down, saying if the mission is counterterrorism or to take on activities, we have the ability to project and get in there when we need to?
Absolutely. I couldn't possibly agree any more strongly. That is exactly right. As a matter of fact, we've had this capability for a long time, and it has definitely been enhanced since 9/11. A lot of people don't remember that we actually had bin Laden in Afghanistan in our crosshairs on 2 occasions during the Clinton administration, and for various political reasons, they chose not to go after him on that time. Of course, they didn't realize, what was going to happen on 9/11. But the fact is, if we identify terrorists who are planning anything against the United States, we have the ability right now anywhere in the world, not just Afghanistan, that we can target and take that threat out before it metastasizes or even launches from its location. And we do not need to have troops on the ground. What we're doing right now, I'll just tell you, here's a good analogy. It's like saying we're trying to drain this lake using a teacup. Yeah, sure. Every day I can get another cup of water and pour it out, but it never does anything to the overall number because it keeps getting filled up with rain from other tributaries, and that's exactly what these terrorist groups there do. So we don't prevent anything, but man, we're losing troops on something that's not even helping our country. The way you described it is absolutely the way we can continue to protect our interest worldwide.